Hi everyone, I'm Paweł and together with Piotrek, we are both from PixelAnt Games. We wanted to share you some of our examples and our experiences, how we created learning-oriented culture to unstuck your programming career. The talk is dedicated mostly to engineers because our vast experience and technical background, but I guess that any game developer can benefit from it, especially when talking about learning, professional growth, and unstucking your professional career. The disclaimer for this talk is though that we won't be presenting you like off the shelf, ready to implement quick fix or quick hack how to unstuck your programming or game development career. We really believe that to truly unstuck, there needs to be a culture, learning-oriented culture that leads to professional development. And we'll be sharing our experiences, how we approach to the problem. The scope for the talks contains the first, I'll do the short intro for both of us. Then we'll define the problem and seeing what might be the reasons behind being stuck in your professional career. Then we'll see how game development studios operates in a different models and what is the root cause of being stuck in game development professional growth. And after that, we'll jump into the meat of the presentation where Piotrek will be covering and he'll share his personal experiences on day-to-day work at PixelAnt Games to show how he unstuck his programming career. After that, we'll just do the short wrap-up and take any questions if you have. So I'm Paweł. I'm co-founder at PixelAnt Games and studio director at Sumo Digital. Since the beginning of creating the studio, we were thinking about joining Sumo Group and Sumo Digital to benefit from working with trustful partner who can support us in many, many ways. We'll be covering that in a minute. I spent 20 years in the professional game development industry, and I used to write codes. I don't do that anymore. I miss that though. Majority of my career, which means 14 years, I spent at Techland, starting as an engine programmer, ending up as chief technology officer, responsible for creating and providing a strategy to create more than one AAA title at the same time, sharing the same code base. Right now, I'm 100% focused and fully devoted to build PixelAnt Games, being on the quest to bring fun back into game development. Piotrek is a senior software engineer who joined PixelAnt Games a couple of months ago. He spent many years in software development, ranging from different systems to web services, but also he has been working in game dev before. He's a passionate system developer and he's happy to be in the game dev again, and I'm happy too. Now let's try to see what are the reasons of being stuck in your professional career development. There are a couple of those. First of all, and I guess that this is like the majority of the situation that we have in game dev studios, is that game dev studios are working on a single project or franchise for many years. And it's like wise from the business perspective, right? So if you spend like a couple of years working on a title, you're gaining know-how and knowledge, you should definitely benefit from it in the next title, which is not definitely good for professional growth of an engineer or game developer, because it's like the huge risk to do the same thing. The same situation is with the fixed technology stack, right? So it's like very rare situation when companies are switching tech stack from one project to another. Once you make a choice, you probably will stick to it for the next titles that you've been working on because of the know-how and the things that we described before. When it comes to processes and rituals, it's very similar situation. It's like very rarely situation when company or single development studio changes from waterfall to agile methods or vice versa. From one project to another or every 6 months, right? So it's like very probable that you will be doing like things in a similar way with similar people in similar meeting structure and so on and so on. So it's very hard to grow in that specific area. there's like very often a situation, and I've seen that many times. If you as an engineer is touching like one line of code, you are becoming an owner of the system or of this area of the code. So it's like very, very often the case when you're becoming the expert or the area owner, and it's very hard for you to get out of it, right? So you're becoming the owner of more and more systems, and you're becoming stuck to them, which is not good, again, when you are like thinking about trying something else, maybe exploring different areas of the code or game development process. And of course, there's like no problem if the project that you're working on is interesting and attractive. If it's not, you might be stuck to some not interesting project, and it's like it might be very hard in a single company to get out of it. So that's another reason of being stuck to maybe some not interesting projects and that you cannot benefit from it and you cannot learn from it. And if you're like kind of a new into the game dev industry, it's probably fine because you have like a lot of experts and a lot of smart people around you that you can learn from. But after spending a couple of years in the same studio, you're becoming an expert in the field. And that might be a situation where you're becoming the smartest person in the room. And if that's the case, congratulations, but also you don't have like anything to learn, and you don't have like anybody that you can learn from, right? So it's like not the ideal situation from the professional growth perspective. There is often a case in the game development process when you need to switch to some task which is required by the project. For example, once the project is close to being finished, you need to work on performance, you need to work on submission processes, then you should provide some DLCs, patches, and stuff like that. So if you don't have like any more options in terms of different projects, you are being stuck to something that you might not be willing to do. And that's also very often the situation in majority of the game development studios. They are being bound to the project that they're working on, to the product that they're working on. And last but not least, very, very important thing. So majority of studios hire for projects even though they say they don't. And not for the culture, which is the most important thing, right? So hiring for culture means that you're building a sustainable organization that can be, that can develop itself in many years ahead, because the project needs some skills, some expertise right now, but it will end up very quickly once the project is being finished or some stage of the project is being finished. So hiring for project is a very short-term view. Hiring for culture means very long-term view for the company or for the organization, which should be the priority. Now let's take a look into development models behind majority of the game development studios that might be the root cause for the reasons of being stuck that we've just described. So first of all, the most common one is own IP development related studio, right? So it means that studio and the teams are working on in-house game for many years, whether it's AA, AA premium or AAA, it takes years to finish the project. Then from the business perspective, it's very wise to make the sequel if the project is being successful, right? You have the know-how, you know the tech, you have a team with experienced team. So it's a natural way of moving forward to making a sequel, which again might be the root cause of being stuck in many areas that we described on the previous slide. The second model that changes things a little bit is the outsourcing company, right? So it's kind of a software house when the work is being subcontracted to you or to your team. So you have the ability and access to work on different titles because you might have different clients. So maybe it's like you're not being stuck to one project anymore. But again, that's the situation when you cannot learn besides doing the work. So you're not meeting the people from the client side a lot. You're not part of the team or for the whole project that client is working on. You're just supposed to deliver a part of the project, being provided by a brief or some kind of API, and you're delivering the black box to the client, and you cannot benefit from working with the client directly. On the other hand, co-development, which means to develop jointly, solves this problem a little bit, because you can work with clients very closely, you can be a part of the team, and you can learn much more. And we'll see and explore the difference between outsourcing and co-development in the next slide, because those two terms are mixed up very often, and I would really like to address that. So as you can see here, outsourcing means doing the work as a separate external team. You can be provided by a brief, you deliver the work, you're getting paid, job done. But you're not being a part of the client's team, right? So you don't know about the processes, you don't know about meeting structure, you don't know everything about the project because you see only a part of it. Whereas in co-development, you can work together and learn from each other, which is an amazing opportunity to learn not only the domain, the merit stuff, but also how the project is being run, what are the processes, how to talk to the publisher of the project, because you are also the part of those conversations. So it's a much way better solution to learn and to share experiences between those developers in that kind of a setup. Whereas in the outsource, as mentioned, you're getting the brief, you provide the black box, and you're giving the black box to the client, and you're not part of the bigger picture. And taking that into account, we created company culture within PixelAnt Games, taking this into account since the beginning. So since the beginning, we assumed that we'll create a culture which focus on growing yourself and your skills. So our business model stands on two stable legs. The first leg is games co-development. I mean AA premium, AAA games development. That's why we decided to join Sumo Digital, to have the access to all of the partners, all of great games that we've been playing for many years. And right now we can work on them, but in co-development type of work, we can learn from them. We can learn from experienced team, very often much way experienced than us. On the other hand, we would like to leverage those experiences, gather them, and use this know-how to create our own IP in our own way. So that's our way to unstuck in terms of our professional growth, but also to bring fun back into our game development, because we can work on many great projects. And very important aspect of it as well, and that's the important part of the culture that I was mentioning at the beginning of the talk, is that we're like treating keep on growing yourself and your skills as a main value that we really put a lot of attention in every aspects of the studio operations. So we're choosing very carefully the projects that we're working on. We're choosing the projects based on what we want to learn. We're choosing the clients in terms of how to build a relationship with them for many years ahead. So this is like the part of the strategy. Growing ourselves is part of strategy, and we believe that that's the like true source of motivation. And motivation leads to quality in the next upcoming years, which is our component for our secret sauce of making high quality games. What are the projects in the setup that I've described? So Sumo Digital co-developed so far more than 100 games on any genre, any platform, and any technology. At the moment, today, we support 6 projects that we've chosen very carefully. And we're like part of the teams anywhere between 30 and 150 people. We can choose any projects we want, and there are like different technologies, different tools, different teams that we can support. But we're like focusing on creating our studio profile towards Unreal Engine 4 and 5 and proprietary tech type of a high-profile studio, because we want to learn from that and benefit from those experiences in our own IP that we're starting developing very soon. And one important aspect is that the COVID-19 thing enabled working from home, and it become very natural, right? So we're working 100% remotely, and it opened up a lot of opportunities in terms of co-development. So other studios, other clients opened up to this like opportunity a lot, and we have the access to all of the games that you can see. So we can work on Forza Horizon or Hitman or Sackboy, staying in Poland and building the studio with access to those titles here, basically. So let us revisit Reason of Being Stuck again to show you how our like setup and our culture helps solving those issues. So being in one project genre for many years, we don't have that problem, right? We have the access to many projects. At the moment at Sumo Digital, there's like 40 projects being in development, and 80 more projects are waiting in the waiting line to be developed. So we can choose between those, and we can pick them very carefully in terms of what we want to learn and what we want to do. Fixed tech stack, checked, right? We can choose between different engines, different technologies in terms of the networking, but also in terms of game development engines, whether it's a proprietary or Unreal or Unity. We can choose. There are so many options that we can choose and learn from. And the same goes with processes and rituals, right? So we can learn from one client, how is he doing the agile implementation, or the other publisher, how to do the gating process for own IP creation. So we can learn from that a lot. From the engineering standpoint, you don't have to be a owner of a specific area, right? So you can get out of the specialization if you want to. We have like a lot of examples where, I don't know, network engineer who would like to stay in the network and explore his expertise. He has like 5 to 7 projects to choose between, and he can do that like in the future. But also, if he decides to test a little bit how the gameplay development looks like, he has like 5 to 7 different projects that he can work on the gameplay side. For example, providing how the TPP camera implementation should look like in Unreal Engine, for example, because we have this big like titles in our list that we can choose from, right? So that's the great opportunity to get out of the specialization and to try different areas if that's something you want to do in terms of professional growth. Lack of interesting projects, well, checked. We're working on some titles that we've been playing 20 years ago, and we can right now work on the franchises to work on those titles. So it's an amazing opportunity to choose very carefully, and also projects that are like amazing for us. Like we've been playing those games for many years, and right now we can co-develop them. So it's a great opportunity for us. Lack of experts around. So we are not the smartest person in the room anymore. Even though we're hiring and we have like on board at PixelAnt Games a lot of developers with 15 to 20 years of experience, we can learn from people with 35 years of experience. I'm 41, and I'm very often on the meetings with Sumo, I'm the youngest person there. So I can learn a lot from people who are 60, 65, which is an amazing opportunity. We can learn how to do the business right, how to build the organization, how to co-develop those double AAA projects with the biggest partners out there. So that's the true culture of growth. In terms of this inefficient resource allocation, we are not bound to the project anymore. We can switch anytime. Like every 3 months, 6 months, maybe 2 years if the project is being interested, but we don't have to stay within the project just to fulfill the resource allocation. We can just choose between those projects and change it on a daily basis. It's our call. And at last but not least, the most important thing, we're hiring for culture. If we hire for culture and there is like the fit and alignment on the values, we'll find a project for you for sure, because we have so many of them. So we covered the high level of being unstuck for your professional career and how we approach that. Right now, I'll hand over to Piotrek, who will explain a little bit more and share his personal experiences of what does culture and that setup means for him on a daily basis. So, Piotrek, over to you.
Thanks, Paweł. Hello, everyone. I'm Piotr Kościuk, and I've joined PixelAnt Games in April this year. I work on a Sumo Sheffield project built on proprietary technology. The team comprises about 150 people, of which there are about 60 programmers. Most of them are core studio employees. It's an arcade first-person perspective game based on one of the best-known licenses. I'm one of 5 PixelAnt Games employees involved in this project. And I would love to say more about it, but unfortunately it was not yet announced, so stay tuned because it's worth it. What is the most important for me in code development is that I'm the part of the team. I'm not just a contractor whose the only job is to deliver a requested piece of software. From the beginning, my lead from Sumo asked me what are my interests and if I find a particular part of the engine interesting. Currently, I work on the animation system and I'm responsible for how the new animation blending system works. It's a junction of rendering and simulation layers, and I work closely with many industry veterans in those fields, which is a really inspiring environment. After completing my first tasks, other team members added me to all relevant code reviews and architecture discussions, where I can present my ideas, which are often being implemented. I work with the producers, tech directors, and other software developers. I take part in all project meetings, including Tuesday code catch-ups, where I can learn about how Sumo technology works, ask why coding decisions were made, and pick up the best practices from people who spend their whole lives in the gaming industry. Besides technical meetings, there are also casual catch-ups 2 times a week, where I can integrate with the project team. When I asked my colleagues what do they think about code development, I heard it's like a regular remote work, and I think that it describes it quite well. However, worth remembering is that PixelAnt Games choose projects very carefully on which we are working. We want to learn from projects, not to be frustrated because of them. For example, I was really shocked by the documentation quality in the projects I am working on. I've joined in a quite busy time, in a milestone week, and I was directed to the documentation where I could find everything I needed, starting from how to download the project, how to build it, to things like how the animation system works. We would like to keep such level of documentation while working on our own IP. At this point you may say, okay, this sounds great, but what about being part of PixelAnt Games? Well, this is an excellent question. I know it looks like that I'm being sent to Sumo Sheffield to work on their projects. Other colleagues are working on different projects. So are we identifying ourselves with PixelAnt Games, or are we just heads for hire? It's really easy to lose the company identity and to become a software house, especially when people are spread across 6 or even more projects. In the end, most of our time we spend on the development, on meetings with other team members. Our projects are top AAA and AA plus titles, so everyone can find a match meeting their expectations. My colleague even said that he likes his project so much that he doesn't want to change it even for working on our own IP. Fortunately, everyone is aware of such risks, and a lot of effort was made so that PixelAnt Games is something more than just a company that assigns you to a project and that pays your paycheck. First of all, everyone at the company knows that they are a part of something bigger than the current projects. We have regular meetings like company updates, where we can see a bigger picture and see the plans for the company growth, possible new business opportunities and plans for the future. We have an open door policy, so everyone can comment, ask questions and say their concerns. If a subject needs more discussion, we organize additional calls to discuss different points of views on a given matter. For example, recently we discussed setting smart goals, which needed a follow-up meeting to talk about pros and cons of this approach. We always try to find the best solution and everyone's inputs is heard. Besides company updates, every 2 weeks, every employee has a one-to-one meeting with a manager to discuss projects and company issues and also personal development. HR updates is an excellent example of how transparency works in the company. It is a great opportunity to learn and discuss HR-related things like types of employment policies, charity events that the company will support, or additional training we would like to have. Ola is our survey expert and she always makes her best so that the content meets our expectation. For example, we had 2 sessions with ergonomics expert whose tips and exercises helped a lot of us relieve pain and other health-related issues linked to the job in the front of the computer. When we started to discuss the company structure, we had a training session with external experts to learn how to manage projects effectively, avoiding potential common problems and pitfalls. Besides that, we have virtual coffee calls twice a week, which, with our assumption, no working allowed, is a great place to integrate with colleagues and talk about any subjects which comes to our mind. Because we currently all work remotely, although our great office is just around the corner, we also have random one-to-one virtual coffees, making it easier to meet new company members. It's a great opportunity to learn about coworkers' hobbies, like, for example, who likes to play an instrument or who likes to brew a beer. We also have lightning talks where everyone can talk about any interesting subjects, both technical and non-technical. For instance, people can share their experiences from their projects, like your Unreal Engine functionalities that works great or not for a given game feature in a game they are currently working on. Unfortunately, I can't give any examples of that because we mostly work on unannounced titles. We also discussed Unreal Engine 5 feature before they were publicly announced. We keep our finger on the pulse and we want to use everything we learn while working on our own IP. It is also a place where one can share their experience on side projects. For example, Adrian implemented motion matching and described how it works and presented us the results of it. Apart from technical talks, we also have non-technical presentations. We had presentations about how to start money investing, work effectively, memorize things more easily, and many, many more. All talks are recorded and are available to all employees. It's a great repository of knowledge where we gather experience from all projects people from the company are involved in. I've talked already about the project and company perspective, but what PixelAnt Games offers to their employees is a real game changer. From my first one-to-one meeting, I was asked if I like my project and what am I doing, or if I would like to change it. I really do like my project and find it really exciting and challenging, but some colleagues change their projects, and it's fine, because this way every one of us works on things that makes them tick. As we all know, a motivated employee is an effective employee. One of our key values is constant learning. In my one-to-one meetings, I discuss my plans for the future. Even though I currently work on the animation system, I can choose freely what I will be doing in the future. It may be rendering, it may be networking. I'm not bound to any specialty, unless I would like to, just because this is something I was doing in the past. Monotony in work is a terrible thing. It's not only game dev problem. You can work in a great company, but if you get stuck in one system and get bored of it, you will probably change your job sooner or later. Here we've got 5 learning days per year, during which I can choose any subject I would like to learn. During those days, I can stay offline without any emails or instant messaging, just me to stay focused and get the most of this day. In addition to all that, each employee has unlimited free Udemy access, which makes it even easier to master new topics. And it opens many exciting paths for personal development, especially when we sum everything up. Exciting projects, learning from people from the project team, learning from colleagues' experience in other projects, learning days, Udemy access, and lightning talks. All this makes working at PixelAnt Game an exciting and inspiring experience. I hope I hit your interests. If you would like to learn more, please stay with us for Q&A session. And Paweł, back to you.
Thanks, Piotrek. That was very insightful, and thanks for sharing. So right now it's time to wrap up our talk. First of all, as mentioned, there is no easy fix or quick hacks to truly unstuck professional growth. What we believe is that the studio leadership needs to focus on building learning-focused culture to truly unstuck and to build the business setup around professional growth. Co-development might be one of the solutions and can drive the culture of learning because of different projects, because of different clients, because being a part of the team in opposition to doing the outsourcing, right? So it's a great opportunity to set up the business that you can learn from others who are more experienced and who can bring great knowledge and experience to the table for our studio to benefit from it in the future in our own IP development. We are in the situation when we have more projects than developers, so we have the ability to choose what we want to learn and what we want to have fun with. And it's a great opportunity for us to really bring fun back into game development, right? So we really love developing the games that we've been playing for many years so far. And we also have opportunity to broaden our horizons in terms of, if you're dedicated to one area of game development, you can try some different areas here to see whether it's interesting for you. Maybe you would like to stay there for a couple of months or years longer. You have the ability to meet different people, so you can grow. And that's exactly the thing about learning from industry experts and partners as well in the setup. So working with different clients, but in the co-development model, so we can see different rituals, different meeting structure, org structure, and different issues and risks in the projects. We can cherry pick the best practices and tips that we can see to create our own recipe for our own IP development. Also, we can explore new exciting things like Unreal Engine 5 in action to see whether it's stable or not for our type of work that we would like to make in the future in terms of our own IP. We can meet new people from client side, from partner side, from Sumo side, to learn from each other and to share experiences. The last thing about learning from the setup that we have is that we have the ability to choose between all genres, all technologies or platforms. We are focusing on taking high profile projects, but of course there is a possibility to see and to be a part of a smaller project, maybe to see how the tech works there and how we can benefit from learning that in our own IP. Pandemic opened up opportunities for co-development, and it means that relocation is not needed anymore. So we can work on those top tier titles without relocation. We can set up the team here in Poland and work on the worldwide in terms of doing the co-development, which is like also very important that the clients opened up to that kind of collaboration as well, right? So it's another opportunity to work on the best possible titles out there. And as mentioned, to sum up all of our setup and experiences, that's our way to get our secret sauce and to gear up for our own IP. Again, we have like a lot of experience in our studio, people with 20 years of experience, but we're very humble in our approach, and we know that we can learn from, and we should learn from people and game developers who have 35 years of experience, because that will make us closer to the ideal way of creating our own IP that we want, right? So to prevent crunch, to learn more, to assess of the risks, to see different solutions and different processes, to carefully craft our own way of making our own IP. On the other hand, many projects in the studio means challenges for the studio identity, right? We can be treated as a gaming software house, and Piotr covered that already. So we need to put like a lot of attention to really share the knowledge within PixelAnt games, to build a studio identity. And we are doing like a lot of different meetings, and in the different forms we're trying to be a part of the team. Of course, our own IP will help that, and at some point we'll be like building our identity around our own IP. But for sure, we want to stay. We want the co-development to stay with us for a long time, because it's a part for a long-term strategy, and we can see how we can benefit from it. And last but not least, that's the advice I can give you and to any studio of the leadership today. Hire for culture, not for a project. Project has a very short-term needs and very short-term requirements. In terms of your professional growth, you should be focusing on companies who hire for culture, because if the culture allows you to learn, to grow, and change different areas, different projects, that's the place you want to be in terms of your professional growth. That's all that we prepared for you today. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you.